Good morning and welcome back to day 286 of our 365 days of Bible study. At the moment we're looking at the Jesus story from St. Mark's Gospel, which is copied almost in its entirety in St. Matthew and St. Luke. Today we're looking at Herod and the death of John the Baptist. This is Mark chapter 6, verses 14 to 29. King Herod heard about what Jesus was doing. He was making a name for himself. People were saying John the Baptizer has been raised from the dead. That's where he gets the power to do these things. But others said he is Elijah, and others said he is one of the old prophets. But when Herod heard about it, he said, John, the one I beheaded, has been raised. Because Herod had sent and had John arrested, he bound him in prison to please Herodias, his brother Philip's wife, because he had married her. John had said to Herod, "It is illegal for you to have your brother's wife." That's why Herodias has a grudge against John and wanted him dead. But she couldn't have him killed because Herod was afraid of him. He knew John was an upright and holy man, so he kept him safe. When he listened to John, it puzzled him a lot, though he was glad to listen. Then an opportunity came. It was Herod's birthday, and he threw a banquet for his courtiers and officials and the political leaders of Galilee. When Herodias' daughter came in, she danced and pleased Herod and his guests. The king said to the girl, "Ask me for anything you like and I'll give it to you. Yeah, even half of my kingdom." She went out and asked her mother, "What shall I ask for?" And she said, "The head of John the Baptizer." Quickly, she ran back into the king and asked, "I want you to give me, right now, the head of John the Baptizer on a serving dish." The king was very sorry indeed, but because he had made oaths in front of his guests sitting there, he didn't want to break the promise he had made to her, so right away the king sent an executioner, giving the order to bring his head. He went and beheaded him in the prison, and brought the head on a serving dish and gave it to the girl. The girl then gave it to her mother. When his disciples came to hear about it, they came and took his body away and laid it in a tomb. Well, what are we to make of this? Reincarnation doesn't appear as a major theme in early Christian writing, but it was clearly there amongst Jews and pagans. They had pet theories about who Jesus might be. They likened him to old prophets like Elijah, probably because of his reputation as a miracle worker. This story is given to us by Mark as an explanation of Herod's fear of Jesus, and therefore a partial explanation of why Herod might have favoured executing Jesus to remove the threat he believed Jesus to be. It is well known that Herod was insecure in his role as king of the Jews, not being Jewish himself, and in his old age paranoia and mental illness plagued him. We know these things from contemporary sources outside of Scripture. Herod's fear was twofold. Jesus showed some signs of being a messianic figure, and that was a threat to Herod's kingship. But the reports of Jesus he was receiving reminded him also of John the Baptist, and he feared that Jesus was John come back to haunt him. When Josephus, the Jewish Roman historian, wrote about the execution of John, he was naturally focused on the politics and makes no mention of a birthday party or a promise. And Mark may have been a bit out on who was married to whom, and quite what John's criticism of Herod might have been. This story, as Mark tells it, might well have been the version of events being bandied about in the inns and the marketplaces, rather than that documented on the desks of historians. Mark certainly regarded John as the precursor, the predecessor of Jesus. And here he has taken the popular story and adapted it as his version of the Passion of the Forerunner, which echoes Jesus's passion in a number of interesting ways. Let me explain. In short, Herod questions John and Pilate questions Jesus. Herod regards John as righteous and holy, and this is echoed by Pilate's attitude of wonderment at Jesus and his protest to the crowd that Jesus had done nothing wrong. You can see these in Mark chapter 15, 5 and 14. John's enemy, Herodias, gets her way, and the Jewish enemies of Jesus get theirs, resulting in the beheading of John and the crucifixion of Jesus. So there are parallels all the way through between the passion of John the Baptist and the passion of Jesus. What can we tell from such a story? Well, first, we get a glimpse into what ordinary people thought went on in royal palaces. Then we gather with what little respect the rulers of Judea were regarded by the people on the street. The Messiah was longed for and desired by the ordinary people as a worthy successor of King David and King Solomon. And we know from the Dead Sea Scrolls that the longed-for Messiah was by some regarded not just as a king, but also as a high priest. By the time Mark was writing, Jesus was believed by Christians to have fulfilled both of these roles, the servant king and the priest who offered himself as the ultimate sacrifice that saved us all. Tomorrow, Jesus tries to take the disciples away on a retreat, but the crowd have other ideas. I'll see you tomorrow.